Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is once again me, Zach, here today with yet another Barony tier list update. Today we're going to be talking about the classes in Barony. Now, in this most recent update, that being the Keep Your Secrets update, only one class was directly changed in a meaningful way. That class will, hilariously, not be moving at all as I edit this tier list, but the merchant got some cool new stuff. It's not enough to move him on the tier or move them on the tier list or anything, but it is notable. All right, we're gonna bypass that entirely though and go straight to the alterations I want to make here. So I have been playing Barony for several hundred hours now. Nothing too insane, but my opinions on some of these classes have changed. And in point of fact, the previous tier list that I did, I believe was done right as the Mesmer and the Conjurer got their new hats. Or maybe it was before, or was it like right after? Either way, it was made at a time where a lot of the more recent Barony stuff was not present, or I had not experienced it enough to make a full decision on it. I do think it factored in a little bit, but for instance, I didn't put enough emphasis on how good the Apprentice's Hood is that both of these classes start with. So we're going to be starting with one of my favorite classes, the Mesmer. The Mesmer is a little bit better than I was giving them credit for, mostly because of the Hood. The Hood scales up really well, and you pretty much don't have mana issues in the early game, allowing you to spam out your cold spell much more consistently, meaning that your high scaling intelligence kind of compensates for your low durability a little bit. I'm not going to move them super high, but I'm going to put them here. They have one of the highest int, charisma, and perception scaling stats in the game, but their physical stats are still dumpster tier, so they are still high risk. Now, because we don't want this tier to get too bogged down by people in it, we are going to be talking about the Sexton. The Sexton is going to be moving up to A tier. Mid-risk, high reward. The reason for that is the sleep spell is bonkers good, and I knew that when I put them in the high reward category. However, I wasn't aware of just how consistently good the Sexton would be overall, because I hadn't played it as often as some of the other magic classes. Using the 3 chakrams that you start the game with and the sleep spell to kite basically any enemy around the dungeon allows you to, even on higher difficulties, pretty casually clear out the first couple floors, and the sleep spell and chakram method can even be effective at dealing with the first couple lightning staff gnomes before you pick up your own lightning staff in the gnomish mines. In addition to all of this, they do start with the unlock spell, which I noted, I believe, in the last tier list, and that is really handy. That utility is so nice. But they also start with the locking spell, which used to be a meme. But with the advent of mimics, it is no longer a meme. It is a fantastic early game tool for dealing with what is, to most new players, and even experienced players that are in the early stages of the game, a terrifying force of nature. Overall, Sexton is great in terms of their starting equipment and fantastic in their starting spells, but even more than all of that, they also have as their 3 attributes strength, intelligence, and dexterity, meaning that they are capable of being a very solid DPS choice for any of the 3 major playstyles in the game. Fantastic stuff. 10 out of 10, no notes. In addition, we've got someone else moving out of C tier, and that is Conjurer. Conjurer is going to be going into B tier. Especially with the Hood, and when playing Conjurer not as a skeleton, a lot of the weaknesses of the Conjurer can be pretty easily overcome by just playing careful, essentially. And by the late game, you are a very tanky mage. Overall, I think that the Conjurer's potential DPS is a little bit lower than a lot of the other classes in the game. They're decent at magic damage, but they don't really do well with ranged or melee all that much. Comparing them to the Sexton, the overall rewards you get are just not as high. the summons you get, the Conjure Skeleton spell, is pretty powerful, but it does also require a fair bit of micromanagement to remain effective throughout the game. And in the late game, sometimes, especially if you're playing kind of fast, you'll often find that your followers are just not that strong overall. And that's kind of a bummer, you know, that you don't really want that. That being said, Conjurer, while they are somewhat mid in the late game, they are still a tanky mage, and that is worth noting. In addition to this, moving up to the B tier here, because I'm happy with the placement of all these guys now. Moving up to the B tier, Punisher. I'm going to be moving Punisher down a tier. I put them in B tier, and I think I debated it a little bit in the original video, but they are pretty high reward, because they do scale strength and dex, because, you know, their whip and all that, so they are really good at DPS. But they are also pretty high risk, I mean, for sure. Unless you're playing as an Incubus, which has a slightly easier time with the class. But there are a lot of cool class race combinations with the Punisher that can net you really powerful effects in the mid to late game. I don't think they are only a mid reward, and I don't entirely agree with mid risk either. They definitely don't feel like an A tier class. They definitely feel more like a C tier class. Difficult, but highly rewarding when you manage to pull it off. That being said, they definitely are not the top of C tier. I would say they are probably, if we're arranging this in order from like best in this tier to worst, I'm gonna say that it looks more like this, I think. Maybe like that. No. They start with a ring of levitation. It's like this. Oh, well, sorry. Like this. There we go. By the same standards, I would say Conjurer is probably more around here. Probably. Yeah, that seems about right to me. I'm pretty happy with the rest of B tier. I think this looks good. A tier? Well, we definitely have to move Sexton. I think Sexton is legitimately the second strongest in A tier. I do think that I'm probably going to move... Oop, not that far. Mechanist behind Wizard. With the changes to spellcasting, I do think all spellcasters are a little bit more powerful than they used to be in a big way. I don't really think that these guys need to be moved at all, though. The healer is just... It can be kind of tricky in the early game. Once you get past that, it's not so bad. I am tempted to put them in mid-reward, but I still value the tankiness of the healer in the late game. I find it to be pretty valuable. However, S tier. Big changes here. Cleric's moving up, baby. Still behind Ninja, but this is now the order for S tier. And the reason for that is because Troll's Blood got changed. Now, no spoilers for the spell tier list update or anything here, guys, but the Cleric starts with the Troll's Blood spell, which used to not work if you were playing with Hunger off. Now it does. Okay, sorry about that hiccup there. My headphones turned off randomly. Very cool stuff. But, like I was saying, the Cleric's Troll's Blood spell, now consistent across basically any game mode. It's very useful if you play around leadership. It's a great AoE heal. It's way better in the early game than the heal spell itself in most scenarios. They're kind of even early in the mid game, and late game Troll's Blood takes over entirely. But like, in addition, the Cleric just starts with a bunch of cool stuff. Scrolls of Summon, Potions of Healing, Enchanted Gear. They start with a shield, which is nice. The block changes are very healthy for the game, and the Cleric is one of the classes that can take advantage of them quite a bit. So overall, Cleric, I think, is a little bit stronger than Shaman. Shaman is a late game pop-off class massively now. It always was that a little bit, but with the fact that you can have, I believe the Imp form can in fact cast spells and gets a massive intelligence boost, they're keeping their spot. They're not going anywhere. Overall, you would think Monk might have been affected by the block changes a little bit, but sort of not really, because the block changes make it slower to level, and Monk starts with a really high block, so they're actually pretty happy with how things have gone for them. But yeah, overall, that's it. That's the big changes. There might still be some tweaks I want to make to this in the future, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. A lot of this is based off of my personal experiences in the game, not necessarily personal preference, because I don't really like playing some of the classes in like S and A tier, and my favorite just moved up to C tier. Well, second favorite. But it is based off my experiences and observations watching other people play, playing those classes myself, etc. It's also based off of mostly a multiplayer environment. Not entirely, but mostly. Because while I do play by myself a lot for YouTube and stuff, my favorite way to play is in multiplayer. Yeah, and there's always personal bias in these tier lists, so keep that in mind when you're leaving comments. You don't got to agree with me, but just be nice to each other. Generally, everyone is, so good job. But that all being said, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for tuning into the video. It was a lot of fun to revisit these tier lists. I still have a couple more that I want to do, but it has been a blast so far. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy these Barony videos, and if you can, become a member of the channel. That would be great. You get to watch the videos early. You know, there's going to be like special emojis and stuff. I don't even know. Alright? It's going to be cool, though. But for now, and until next time, peace.